Hey guys, it's Vanny here, and today I thought we'd go through a video that the channel Kurzgesagt put out 2 days ago and respond to it. So let's get started.
Humans love meat. Steak, fried chicken, bacon, pork belly and sausages are just the best things.
I used to call myself a die-hard meat lover who could never even go a day without eating meat, up until just about 6 years ago or so, before I went vegetarian and eventually vegan. And if you ask around, I'm sure you will find many more people who used to love meat and yet they are vegan now. I might do a separate video on this whole meat-loving phenomenon and why you can still go vegan and not feel like you're missing out, but for now just know that yes indeed, even quote-unquote meat lovers can go vegan and stay vegan and be perfectly content and happy. And of course healthy, but that's something for a different video, which I happened to already have made, link in the description.
Eating meat has become so trivial that many people don't consider something a proper meal if there's no animal involved. Which is pretty amazing, since only a few decades ago, meat was a luxury product. Today, you can get a cheeseburger for $1.
Yes, you can get a cheeseburger for $1, but let's not forget subsidies and externalized costs. If people would pay the true costs of meat, then, for example, a $5 burger would suddenly cost $13. In the US alone, animal agriculture causes over $400 billion in externalized costs per year. And that's just the monetary costs. There are costs that cannot really be put into numbers like that.
Paradoxically, meat is pretty much the most inefficient way of feeding humans. If we look at it on a global scale, our meaty diet is literally eating up the planet. Why is that, and what can we do about it without giving up steak?
Wouldn't it make more sense to first look at what the problems with meat are and then decide whether or not we should continue to eat meat or switch to a plant-based diet, rather than just basically stating that no matter what, you will just not give up meat anyway?
Humans keep a lot of animals for food. Currently about 23 billion chickens, 1.5 billion cattle, and roughly 1 billion pigs and sheep. That's a lot of mouths to feed, so we've transformed Earth into a giant feeding ground. 83% of its farmland is used for livestock, for example as pasture, and to farm fodder crops like corn and soy. That's 26% of Earth's total land area. If we include the water we need for these plants, meat and dairy production accounts for 27% of global fresh water consumption. Unfortunately, meat production is like a black hole for resources. Since animals are living things, most of their food is used to keep them alive while they grow their tasty parts. Only a fraction of the nutrients from fodder crops end up in the meat we buy in the end. Cows, for example, convert only about 4% of the proteins and 3% of the calories of the plants we feed to them into beef. More than 97% of the calories are lost to us. To create 1 kilogram of steak, a cow needs to eat up to 25 kilos of grain and uses up to 15,000 liters of water. Animal products are guzzling up tons of food, but they only make up 18% of the calories humans eat. According to projections, we could nourish an additional 3.5 billion people if we just ate the stuff we feed to animals. To make our favorite food group even more unsustainable, about 15% of all greenhouse gas emissions caused by humans are created by the meat industry, as much as by all ships, planes, trucks and cars combined. And there's another aspect to meat. It comes from actual living beings. Pigs, cattle and chicken are not the ones writing the history books, but if they were, humans would appear as rampant genocidal maniacs that thrive on suffering. Globally, we kill about 200 million animals every day, about 74 billion a year. This means that every 1.5 years, we kill more animals than people have lived in the entire 200,000-year history of humanity. One could argue that we're doing them a favor. After all, they wouldn't exist without us. We might eat them in the end, but we also provide food and shelter and the gift of existence to them.
I know Kurzgesagt doesn't state that this is their personal view, but this "at least they lived" argument is brought up a lot by people. So I just want to ask those people, would it be okay to kill cats or dogs or humans using that line of reasoning? Where else would we use that line of reasoning? Because if we were consistent with accepting that argument, then we would have to be fine with dog breeders killing their husky puppies for a snack, and yeah, even parents making puberty pie, not for their children in puberty, but from their children in puberty. You get the idea. It sounds pretty insane, doesn't it? Just because you are the main reason that someone came into existence doesn't mean you have the right to take their life away. We would never use this line of reasoning in any other context.
Unfortunately, we're not very nice gods. A lot of our meat comes from factory farms, huge industrial systems that house thousands of animals. Engineered to be as efficient as possible, they have little regard for things like quality of life.
Very true, but even if they had a good life, needlessly killing them just to have a few seconds of taste pleasure, it would still be messed up. Obviously, it's less bad to suffer less, but again, we would never use that line of reasoning in the context of other sentient beings. If you shoot that squirrel in your backyard in the head because it's a pleasurable experience for you, it's still messed up, whether that squirrel had a good life before or not. If you eat your dog because it's a pleasurable experience for you, it's still messed up, whether that dog had a good life before or not. I think you get my point.
Most pigs are raised in gigantic windowless sheds and never get to see the sun. Sows are kept in pens too small to turn around, where they give birth to one litter of piglets after another until it's their turn to be turned into bacon. Dairy cows are forced to breed continually to ensure their milk supply, but are separated from their calves hours after birth. To fatten up beef cattle for slaughter, they're put in feedlots, confined pens where they can't roam, and put on weight more quickly. To make it possible to keep them so tightly together without dying of diseases, the majority of antibiotics we use are for livestock, up to 80% in the US, which helps in the short term, but also fuels antibiotic resistances. But the ones that may have got the worst deal are chickens. In factory farms, they're kept in such vast numbers and so close to each other that they can't form the social structures they have in nature, so they start attacking each other. To stop that, we cut their beaks and claws. Male chickens are deemed worthless since they can't lay eggs and are not suitable for meat production, so within minutes after birth, they're usually gassed and shredded in grinders. Several 100 million baby chickens are killed this way each year. Even if you had a personal score to settle with chickens, how we treat them is beyond broken. So, better buy organic meat, where animals are treated nicely, right? Organic farming regulations are designed to grant animals a minimum of comfort. The problem is that organic is an elastic term. According to EU regulations, an organic hen still might share 1 square meter of space with 5 others. That's a long way off from happy farmyard chickens.
Yep, just to give you one example out of many, male chicks are still ground up alive in the organic egg industry. Terms like organic or free range have much more to do with making people feel better about their harmful decisions rather than providing animals with actually good conditions. And again, even if they lived in good conditions, taking their life away just for a snack is still pretty messed up.
Farms that sincerely do their best do exist, of course.
Doing their best in doing a horrible thing in less horrible ways in an inherently cruel business that is obsolete in our day and age. Just farm and eat plants instead.
But meat is still a business. An organic label is a way to charge more money, and countless scandals have revealed producers looking for ways to cheat the system. And while organic meat might be less cruel, it needs even more resources than conventional meat production.
Less cruel, but still cruel. And unnecessary, like all other animal product industries in our day and age. Just eat plant foods.
So buying organic is still preferable, but does not grant you moral absolution. The truth is, if suffering were a resource, we would create billions of tons of it per year. The way we treat animals will probably be one of the things future generations will look down on in disgust.
Yes, absolutely. That is, if we can survive as a species for long enough to get there. Climate change and fishing practices, keywords fishless oceans as soon as 2048, may wipe out most of humanity before those future generations can even come to be.
While all these things are true, something else is true too. Steak is amazing. Burgers are the best food. Chicken wings taste great.
As I said at the start of this video, I will probably make a separate video on this, but really it comes down to 2 things. First of all, social conditioning and just how meat is marketed and presented in society, and secondly, supernormal stimulus effect. Look it up, it's a pretty interesting topic. In our case, it's basically about meat and all the other animal products being extremely fatty, extremely calorically dense, and extremely salty. You can literally get all of those things from vegan foods as well if you want to. Salt, sugar, oil, spices, herbs, flavor enhancers, smoking aroma, it is all vegan. So if you care about that kind of taste experience, then you can get all that still on a vegan diet.
Meat satisfies something buried deep in our lizard brain. We hardly ever see how our meat is made, we just eat it and love it. It creates joy, it brings us together for family meals and barbecue parties.
Vegan barbecue parties can also bring people together. It's not the cow parts on the grill that give off some magical dust that makes people socialize better magically or magically makes them have a good time. You don't need animal suffering to bring family together.
Eating meat doesn't make you a bad person, not eating meat doesn't make you a good one. Life is complicated, and so is the world we've created.
Yes, not eating meat definitely does not make you a good person per se, but a better person than you were before, for sure. And really, in our day and age, it should just be common sense, the norm, a baseline thing, not something to point out as virtuous somehow. And as for eating meat does not make you a bad person, as soon as you learn about the catastrophic effects that consuming animal products has on the planet and all living things on it, you have the option to choose much less harmful options. And if you have internet access to watch this video, then you most certainly have the option to eat plants. Even where I live now, there are basically no vegan-specific options at the moment, and still I can easily be vegan. So if you now choose to keep consuming meat and other animal products despite knowing the consequences and despite having practicable alternatives, then I would argue it's very difficult to make a case for calling you a good person. And don't get me wrong, I am convinced that at heart you are a good person. But if your actions don't reflect that, what is it really worth?
So, how should we deal with the fact that meat is extremely unsustainable and a sort of horrible torture? For now, the easiest option is opting out more often. Taking a meat-free day per week already makes a difference.
Yes, it's definitely a great way to start. But it's important to realize that reducitarianism is simply not enough. It just isn't. No matter how much you would like it to be. Again, if something is unethical and can be avoided, then doing it 5 times instead of 7 times a week is still horrible. Robbing a bank 5 times a week instead of 7 times a week is a good start, but not enough. Eating puppies and kittens 5 times a week instead of 7 times a week is a good start, but not enough. Shooting people in the head 5 times a week instead of 7 times a week is a good start, but not enough. I think you get my point. And speaking about the environment, we simply do not have the time and resources to have reducitarianism be an appropriate end goal.
If you want to eat meat produced with less suffering, try to buy from trusted producers with a good track record, even if it costs more.
Again, good start, but simply not enough.
To make an impact on the environment, go for chicken and pig rather than lamb and beef, as they convert their feed more efficiently into meat.
I am kind of like a broken record at this point, but again, good start, but it cannot be the end goal. Growing plants and then just eating those plants will always be far superior, environmentally and ethically speaking, compared to growing plants, then feeding tons of plants to animals, to then eat those animals. Just grow plants and then eat plants. It's really simple.
And if you're going to have your steak, you should eat it too. An average American throws out nearly a pound of food per day, a lot of which is meat. In the future, science could get us clean meat. Various startups have successfully grown meat in labs and are working on doing so on a commercial scale. But solutions like this are still a few years away. For now, enjoy your steak.
That's the dumbest conclusion I could think of. Yet I know it is what so many people conveniently agree upon because it's, well, convenient. But take a step back and look at it for what it is. What logic is that? Here is a huge problem that causes a lot of suffering and it also is a world-ending threat and there is this one solution, but it's a few years away. So until we can utilize that solution, let's just ignore the solution we already have. For now, let's just keep driving the planet against the wall with 200 kilometers per hour and keep funding the needless suffering of animals and humans instead. That is insane.
But also respect it. And if you can, make it something special again.
In what other context would it be acceptable to say and get away with, I do this thing here that I know is horrible for literally every living thing on the planet. And I do have alternatives right now that are better in every single way, but I will just keep doing it anyway, because it gives me a few moments of pleasure that I could also get from the alternatives. And how do I justify all this, you ask? Well, I just make it something special and pay some respects. That makes it alright. Cheating on your partner is fine if you make it something special. Beating up people is fine if you make it something special. Eating husky puppies is fine if you make it something special. This is, again, insane.
We have something else for you that's also special.
And that's the video. All in all, I am really thankful Kurzgesagt made this video. There's a lot of good information in it, and obviously the production quality is great, but the conclusions are so absurd. Reducitarianism is a good starting point, yes, but not an end goal, and suggesting that paying lip service is enough to make something horrible acceptable is ignorant to say the very least. What we really need is a society where people finally take responsibility for their actions or lack thereof. Nobody needs to be a superhero, just act responsibly. But how do we get people to take responsibility? Well, we can start by stop treating people like freaking toddlers who aren't capable of making the right decision when presented with facts and logic. Consuming animal products is a horrible thing, ethically, environmentally, and health-wise. We should stop doing it. We need to stop doing it. Just say it as it is. Once we accept that simple fact, we simply help each other out to switch to a vegan diet and ultimately make society a better place. Nobody has to change who they are, nobody has to become a superhero, we just have to stop supporting these incredibly harmful practices. So yeah, just be reasonable and be compassionate, be vegan, everyone wins, and at the end of the day, you can still watch Netflix, play video games, do sports, have a barbecue with friends, or do whatever. You will still be you. And in fact, I'm convinced you will be even more you than you are you now, because you will live much more in line with the values that you probably already hold. That is, to avoid unnecessary suffering and harm as much as is practically possible for you. Alright, that's it, and if you watching this are not vegan yet and you like facts and logic, then feel free to check out my concise, fact and logic-based crash course on why our society needs to go vegan. Link is in the description down below. Thanks for watching, big thank you to all my patrons, and have a nice day.